Questions? All right. Let's get this party started. Everyone, this is Hope Flansburg. I'm Emily Grabatin. I'm the author of the book behind me there, Dare to Decide. And Hope is the author of 2 novels, Piece by Piece and Angel Kisses, which was just released this year. And so Hope, tell us a bit about who you are and what you are all about, just so we have a context going into this conversation.
Hi. Hi. Thanks for having me, Emily. I'm super excited to be here and chat with you because I just enjoy our chats no matter what. But yes, like you already said, I am an author, a double published author now, and I'm also a self-care and wellness educator. So I actually combine the two in my business. So what I do is I teach people about the impacts of stress on our overall health, emotional, physical, and spiritual health, and how that impacts how we show up in the world, how we show up in relationship, how we show up for ourselves. And so with the self-care pieces, I educate and incorporate a bunch of self-care tools, tips, tricks. I want to make it realistic, reachable, and functional. But I also intertwine there's a lot of social emotional awareness around health and wellness and self-care. And I incorporate all of that into, it's really interesting and unique, but I incorporate that into my fiction romance novels because everybody, relationship and connection with others is really, really important to everybody, but it also, our emotional health, how we feel about ourselves, what we've been through, trauma, loss, grief, all of those kind of the things that break us impact our relationships with ourselves, other, and higher power. So big picture, that's what I do in my courses and my connection and education with other people, in my wellness classes, and also in the books that I write as well. That's what I do.
Awesome. Yes, that is a lot to incorporate into once, and just raising the awareness of feeling what we're feeling. I mean, that was a big enough journey just for myself to name what I'm feeling, and let alone to take care of myself and realize, oh, like I'm supposed to pay attention to this. Yeah. So I have some questions for you at the end that I want to ask about, but yeah, let's start out with talking about and again, if you're just watching us, say hi, where you're watching from, and just let us know if you've read Dare to Decide yet or not, just because Hope is going to go into a story of when she read it and afterwards. So let's get some context for that. Last summer, you were helping me launch my book. And so you were reading it and so that you could host it well. Hi, Pam, by the way. Pam is watching. That's fantastic. And so you were reading it just because you were preparing to MC and because, it was my book and, you love me, so you're going to read it anyway.
Exactly.
Right. So tell me, like, where were you at and what were some of the takeaways as you were reading it last summer?
It's really interesting. And looking back, everybody was right in smack dab in the middle of COVID. Everybody's life looked very different. Everybody was going through different things, having different experiences. At that point in time in July, when you and I had discussed, the upcoming book launch and what that was going to look like. With my faith and my relationship with higher power, which for me is God, I over the years, it's a relationship. And so it's, just like any relationship in our life, it's something that I have to prioritize and I have to work at. But from the time I became, well, mine started many, many years ago, but from the moment I became a mother, I realized that this relationship is something I needed to take with me in everything that I do in my life, whether it was parenting, whether it was my marriage, whether it's my business, whether it's my friendships, my relationship with self, this relationship with my higher power, God. That's how I do it. That's what I need to do. And that is super powerful for me. So during COVID, that's kind of where my intention and my mind was as well. but it was rocky, it was a rocky time for
Mhm.
people, and knowing exactly what we're supposed to be doing, what direction we were headed. I had to cancel all my wellness events and workshops that I had scheduled. We're booming in 2020. We're ready to
Right.
boom in 2020.
Yes.
And I had to cancel all of them. So I just really kind of started going down a different path,
Mhm.
but also with the intention of, I can't do this alone. I need God to walk beside me on this. So, long story, my husband and I, many years ago, had talked about a dream that we wanted to do. We've been empty nesters for about 5 years. And just kind of the unknown of the summer and everything that was going on, we were still talking about it. We weren't sure what it looked like, how we were going to make it happen. And I truly believe when you asked me to read this book and be your MC, it was one of those divine intervention moments. It was
Mhm.
like, this is what you need. And you don't realize it at the time,
Mhm.
but this is going to propel you forward.
Yeah.
So
Let me
that's,
push pause in your story because
yeah,
I realized if you haven't read the book yet,
yeah.
then you don't even know why am I even listening to this conversation and why is it significant, right? And so the subtitle of the book is Discovering Peace, Clarity, and Courage at Life's Crossroads. And uh, basically, I wrote the book from a space of well, if you're an Enneagram, I'm an Enneagram 1 and Enneagram 9. So whether it's uh, perfectionism and wanting to make the right decision and wanting to put all myself into that, and that might hold me back from figuring out what do I want to do with my life. Or as a 9, i'm I'm flexible, I'm tuning into all the feelings around me. It's hard for me to decide even what I want. And that sounds crazy to some people. It sounds just other, so a lot of people don't even necessarily understand that unless you are that personality. I'm like, I couldn't care less where I want to eat for at a restaurant. But that's not the big decisions that were feeling tumultuous in life. It was just figuring out what do I want bad enough to invest myself in, because those ones I'm in, I'm all in and I want to pursue it with all of my heart. And really, again, God was very important relationship in directing that too. And so what do you do when you're not sensing? You want to do, well, God, what do you want me to do? If you made me and you see the bigger picture of what's going on, I don't want to just do my own thing, realizing, well, there's something more important for me over here. And so be all these questions of, well, I thought I was doing the right thing, but it didn't turn out the way I wanted. Or how do I know that this is what I should go all into? What do I do with all the emotions? Sometimes you follow the emotions and you're like, you know, all of a sudden you're spiraling downward. But sometimes those feelings are there as signals. And what
Right.
do I do with that? What do they play? What does everyone's opinions have to play in my decision? Because it's wise to have counsel, but sometimes opinions confuse you, right? Like, what do
Mhm.
I do with all these pieces? So for myself, I was like, well, for everyone else, it seems really clear cut. And maybe I'm missing something. So I'm just going to write a book and sort it all out and show you my own journey, take you along, because I've realized I've learned and grown the most hearing someone else when they're in the midst of their story or talking about their journey. And I find the little pieces that I'm with. And because they felt like what they were feeling, because they experienced and they wrestled through it, I identify and say, oh, well, if they can do that, I can do it too. So it's an empathetic, conversational journey, the book all the way through, just so that you have permission to fully be yourself and figure out your own discernment and wisdom for your own life direction. So that's what the Dare to Decide book is all about. That's what Hope was reading last summer. And so go ahead, Hope,
Oh,
continue. You kind of go into the dreams with you and your husband. What was all that about?
well, I think just to kind of give more background, kind of like what you touched on, I think so many people do wrestle with that conversation in their head. What is my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? There has to be more than just this. Or I want
Mm,
fulfillment. I hear that a lot from people is, I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm not feeling really fulfilled in it. And so I love how you put that, a conversational journey um, around the confusion that so many people have when they're daring to decide or daring to make transitions, or you talk about this a lot, the crossroads. We all have crossroads in our lives, and what are we going to do in those moments? um, and just the support around that, because of the different personalities, different experiences that we've all had and gone through, that shift how we're going to make these things happen for us. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, so yeah, you guys, I can't say enough about this book. Okay, it is. We'll get into that in a little bit, because I do love this book on so many different levels. Not just what it did for me, but the impact that I can see that it can have on so many people. But we'll get into that.
Yeah.
So backtrack a little bit. My husband and I had a dream we've been talking about for many years. When COVID hit, just like a lot of people, having to kind of readdress some things, my husband, we were feeling very grateful that he did have job stability, even though ideally it's not the job that we necessarily want him to
Mm-hmm.
stay in. When crisis hit and people were losing their jobs, and life was really tragically shifting for them, we still had job stability. So we
Mm-hmm.
kind of had to look at that. And then we had to look at what was happening with my business, events being canceled, my job, budget cuts, things like that, and where that was going to take us. So Emily asks me to be her MC, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to read this book. It's going to be great. Emily is a beautiful writer. She's a talented writer. So for her to not only have the skills and the gift of writing the way that she does, and then putting the intention of her heart and a passion to help others, because she's a coach, into this book, I mean, it is beautifully done. I can't even think of another word to describe it better, but it is just soul punching in the most powerful ways. So I'm reading this book and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not only touching my heart, the words that Emily uses, and the phrases and the connection um, with people, and her stories, very heartfelt stories, anecdotes, all of these great things, was touching my heart, but it was almost like she was speaking my language.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh my gosh, I have thought that so many times. Oh my gosh, that's exactly how I feel. Oh my gosh, that's one of my morals and values that I've been bringing into my life. But sometimes in life, we can get off track because reality hits hard sometimes. And we need those reminders. We need that support to get us back on track of what we're meant to do and where we're meant to be. So Emily's messages, ironically, divine intervention, I believe it came into my life at a point in time. So about a month later, after her book launch, she had a wonderful, fabulous book launch. Um, After her book launch, my husband came to me and he just said, this dream that we've been talking about for several years now, he said, since we're on this path and I'm going to stay in my job and this is what we're doing, I think we can make this dream happen. And I truly feel, because of that book, when he said that, I was like, yes, I am ready. We are doing this. And I have the confidence and I have the power and I have the support and I have God walking along beside me, and I know it, and I trust it. And we're doing it. And you know what? We just took a leap of faith and we're doing it. And it's interesting because we've kind of manifested this and had this intention and prayed on it for many, many years. And once it started, it has spiraled like one thing after another, that it was one of those signs that said, it doesn't mean there weren't obstacles that got in the way. There are. When you're
Yeah.
on your path and you're doing the things that you're supposed to do, you're going to be tested and there's going to be challenges. But the signs were so much bigger that this is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Go for it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we
That's
did.
awesome. Yeah. So say you read the book, you felt the leap in your heart. to say, oh my gosh, so how long had this dream been kind of in the back burner for just praying, waiting on the sidelines? Did you
You know,
say
we first talked about it probably 14 years ago.
so
We said,
14
"Wouldn't it-
years? It's kind of like, wouldn't
14
it be
years."
nice if one
Yeah.
day?
We're like, wouldn't it be really cool if,
Hmm.
and then, we had this. So what we're doing is we're building we wanted to live on water and we want to live in the mountains. My husband is big in hunting, fishing, snowmobiling, arrowhead hunting, all of that. I was a yoga instructor at the time, and yoga and fitness instructor. And so we just said, wouldn't it be, because he would go off on his male hunting trips, but he didn't, I was home with the kids, but he was like, wouldn't it be really cool if we had a place where, husbands could do this, but they could bring their wives, and then you could do this with their wives. So where the wives weren't, didn't feel like they
Mm,
were left behind, but wives didn't really want to hunt and do all that, but they could
yeah,
be together. The men could hunt and fish, and the women could get their self-care and all of that stuff. So that was like 14 years ago. We're like, oh, wouldn't that be really cool? You know? Um, and then, life just took us on this journey and on these paths. And, when I started holding the events 4 years ago, I opened up Hope for Health Wellness, and I started collaboration and holding the events. And then went through and got my certification as a wellness educator. And we were still talking about, we want to live on water. We want, a little getaway that people can come to, a small little event center. So it's just kind of spiraled and grown. And that's what we're building. We own
yeah,
we bought the land, we sold our house. We're going to start the build in a few months.
that's amazing. And so you're actually living in an entire different state right now,
Yeah.
in limbo between those. So you finished one chapter,
Yeah.
you're in the middle, the messy middle right now of limbo, but there's clarity and peace,
Yeah.
and it's just things are rolling now.
The
So
messy middle, and I call it the living in the unknown, but
yes.
it is challenging, and it's
Mhm.
comes with aches and pains, but it's also where I have learned over the years I get most of my growth. And so in this messy middle, and that's why your book has been really powerful to me, because, and I gave one away at my book launch in
Yes.
February. Um, Mine is packed away in all of our stuff, but I had it sitting here because I had an extra copy because I knew I wanted to give it away at my book launch. So I was kind of going back to it through all of this, because it is, even though it has been painful, and there are challenges that come along in this in between messy middle place of where we're at, that I've been going back to the book and just reading little tidbits here and there. And I downloaded the Kindle last week because I don't have it for the book club. And so I downloaded it again. And it has been just a guiding source of, I'll just read something in there and I'll just, oh yeah, oh yeah, I remember. It brought me back to present. It brought me
Mm,
back to source. It brought me back to where I'm going to seek my energy from when I get in those uncomfortable places. And so it was powerful when I read it, but it has been a great go back to for 10 minutes here and there, off and on, when I just needed those reminders and
wow.
support and the encouragement.
Yeah. So let's jump to what um your calling is right now in self-care. What pieces have you had to implement of self-care, like you living your own message
Yeah.
in the midst of a big dream when things get rolling?
Yeah. Oh boy, that's a big one, because I have to not only do I have to remind myself, my husband reminds me, and my friends
Mhm.
remind me I need to take my own advice. You need to be reminded of that.
Yeah, and I asked that, and you're such a perfect person to answer this, because one of the things that I've heard as I was writing the book, or as I sensed other people's hesitation,
Mhm,
either even scared to dream
mhm.
or to say, oh, like, what if it's the time for that dream to be on the sidelines is over? What if it's time for me to change my career now? What if it's time to make this leap? But I don't have the capacity, or I'm already tired, or
Yeah.
I know I can't take on one more thing because they're looking at what their capacity is right now. So what would you say to those person? What are some of the key principles for taking care of yourself, increasing your capacity for a dream like this?
Yeah. I have several tools and I have several coaches that I go back to. I feel very blessed. I've had so many wonderful mentors and coaches cross my path that have planted those seeds of support when I've
Mhm.
needed them. So they're little voices in the back of my head. One of my biggest tools is what if upping, because one of the things that you just said is what if, and how many times do we spend our life what if downing? What if this
Mhm.
happens? What if, I get sick? What if we don't have enough money? What if, you know, all of these things, we what if the things we don't want in our lives. And so
Yeah.
one of the tools that I have to be reminded is where are my thoughts going? It always comes back to my thoughts. And so when I can really sit and be alone and have the time to reflect, I have to ask myself, where are my thoughts running rapid? And then if I'm constantly what ifing the things I don't want in my life, I will make a list and I'll start what ifing all the things that I do want. What
Mhm.
if we have enough money? What if the time frame is perfect? What if, building costs go down instead of up?
Right.
What if we get our permits what if they approve our permits, in the perfect time? And I'm just talking about my building, but
Yeah.
what
Yep.
if my ideal clients start crossing my path? What if, so I start what ifing the things that
Mhm.
I do want. And it's really strange, you guys, but our minds are very, very powerful tools. And what happens if we're focusing on the things that we don't want, our stress levels are going to skyrocket. It's just our limbic system hears all these negative thoughts. It goes to our adrenal glands. Our adrenal glands produce more cortisol. That's one of the things I teach in my wellness classes. And
Mhm.
we're on this stress spiral constantly. Our thoughts are feeding our stress. And
Yeah.
when we make a shift on where our thoughts go, it starts feeding our calm.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean the circumstances around us haven't changed, but we have controlled our thoughts instead of letting our thoughts control us. So that's a tool I use. And the other one, a big one, it's thoughts again as well. But I have to ask myself, are my thoughts or my mindset, is it coming from, am I seeking my answers from fear, which come from my past experiences, maybe things that haven't gone so well, or am I seeking my answers from my higher power? Where am I pulling my energy from?
Mhm.
So that's another place I go to a lot. And then I'll just start journaling. And when I journal, that really helps me separate if my thoughts are coming from fear
Mm.
from past experiences or if I'm seeking my answers from my higher power, which is God and
Mhm.
faith and trust. So those are kind of my two big ones that I go back to. Um, because I get off track. I do. We're human. We all do. We get off track. We
Yeah.
get funks. We can have the thoughts that really start dragging us down. But implementing some of those really good tools and having the people around you, I think is huge that are going to remind you.
Mhm.
Um,
It's so huge.
yeah.
Because like you said, sometimes you realize it, but sometimes your husband is the one that recognizes it to say,
Mhm.
hey, like, aren't you supposed to be doing something about this right now?
Yeah. Oh, I'll say something and he'll be like, but what if we do it to
You,
each other? We
yeah.
change our what ifs all the time. He'll catch mine and I'll catch his. And then we'll
That's great.
switch them and then we'll laugh about it.
Yeah.
And yeah. And so just I just think, who you surround yourself with is so huge and powerful because we don't have to do this journey alone. And that's what I love about this book and your messages in this book is your power and your gift to support people in a really compassionate, genuine, empathetic, meet them where they're at kind of way in this book. It's not in this book, you aren't like, you should do this or you should do that, or you need to do this, or you need to do that, because that causes more stress.
It does. And that's usually
Yeah.
what my brain is doing anyway. And I realized if anyone needs a whole lot of grace, like I have plenty of shoulds and I need to
Oh,
do
yeah.
this on my own.
Mhm.
And so that's why the book was written from empathy and grace,
Yes.
because that's what pulls me out of my whole muck of shoulds,
Yeah.
and start thinking clearly and start giving myself permission to change my what ifs
Yeah.
and look at, well, am I looking at this from a place of fear and guardedness, or
Mhm.
openness and potential? And it took me years to even develop those rhythms. But the cool thing is, once you start using those tools, once you have the support around you, it really does change. You can pull yourself out of that quicker because
Mhm.
you recognize it sooner and you're more practiced in using those tools. And you're absolutely right. That's why chapter 23 is in the book, on your dare to decide friends,
Yes.
because I believed for so long the lie of, well, I don't have that. Like, nobody's maybe calling me out to in a sense waiting to be rescued, when that isn't actually what empowers you to move forward necessarily. That's not everybody's story, and you're waiting on someone else's control, when
Mhm.
what's in your control, well, recognizing what is the support I need. And it won't all come from one person.
No.
It will come from little pieces here and there. And when you recognize, and that was one of the tools that I started advocating for myself to push myself forward, is, well, what do I need right now? Well, this relationship won't give that, but I need to be around a mindset that thinks differently and sees different possibilities, because I'm
Mhm.
only I'm thinking within this box, but
Yeah.
there's got to be another way, but my brain can't go past those boundaries that I've created myself. When I align myself with just someone who thinks drastically different, and I'm first spend my time just marveling, like, how do you even think like that? How do you even
Yeah.
think that that's possible? What is it that even allows you or permits you to make that assumption without any qualms? Like, that's unfathomable to me. Just being around those, I'm like, okay, that increases my capacity. Or just being someone who's positive and says, well, why can't you do that? That would be
Mhm.
awesome. Like, sure, why not? And they aren't even trying to figure it out or fix you or caution you or all of that. Like, so recognizing, where do I need support to think differently, to learn skills I don't know, to realize, oh, they've been down this path, they're a few steps further. What's normal on this path? Even just
I think,
realizing the messiness is
yeah.
normal. The not figuring it out right away isn't failure. This is a learning experience.
And the feeling uncomfortable is common.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
common. Well,
Yes.
and I think there's
Absolutely.
so much power, and I believe, and this is why connection is my word. It's been my word for since I've started this business, connection, because there's something so powerful when you have those conversations and you're around other people, and they may not even know it. They may not even realize they're doing it, but little seeds are being planted from
Mhm.
either their experiences, their wisdom, their knowledge, their gifts. And those seeds that are planted happen for a reason. And when they start to grow, and one day you may look back and be like, oh my gosh, I remember that conversation that happened 3 years ago. And I
Yes.
remember what he said or she said. And
Yeah.
who would have thought that that little phrase that impacted me so much would have such an important role
Yeah.
in my
And all
journey?
the pieces start connecting. You start seeing them all connected, and they seem on their own just a puzzle dumped upside down on the table. But when you
Yeah.
start putting the pieces together and you start seeing what the picture is, it's a beautiful thing. Well, I don't
Yeah.
want to take up any more anyone's time here, because you have enough to chew on. To something stirred up in you, I'd love to know what that is in the comments. What is the catchphrase that took away that you're going to chew on today? What is, maybe there's an action, because I'm a coach. And so you're
Yeah.
probably going to take away with, what is something you're going to act on if you just sit on this and stew on it? I've learned it usually doesn't get you far, but when you can act on it and do something different than you've been doing before, something's going to shift. And I do have an experience. Hope and I are going to
Mhm.
be part of our Dare to Decide book club, just because I wanted to make it fun and book clubby, because I don't think I was ever part of a like official book club before, but it's not a traditional one. I don't know. It just looks cool, so I called it that. But what it is is an incubator and an activator for your dream. It's a community of connection. As we read the book, we're going to take 6 weeks to read the book, and it's versatile enough. You don't have to take. I mean, Gina's watching. She read the book in a day and decided to take action, and her life is turning around. You read it over a few weeks. Some people are savoring it over weeks. So really, it's just about the 6 weeks is the pace we're going to take to converse about set chapters of each week, so that each week has a theme that we're bringing out. And with that is going to come reflection, maybe some journaling for you, maybe some action steps, and everybody's going to go at their own pace. And so we're going to do that online in the Dare Club Facebook group, because everybody's in different time zones. But then we're going to meet 3 Thursdays of those 6 weeks, so that we actually see each other face to face, hear some of our stories. And there is something powerful. I've been leading groups for 18 years now, and there is something powerful of holding the space for someone to articulate your thoughts, or hearing someone else put to words what you've been feeling. And you're like, what she said. Like, all of a sudden something clicks. There's something so powerful about that. I love that. And so we're going to be doing some of that on our Zoom call as well. And it's going to be exciting and fun. And I've got a few surprises as well. We have a few guest appearances who are featured in the book that are going to be sharing the continuation of the story. Like, what has their life been since they shared their story in the Dare to Decide book? So there's some surprises coming there too. So if you want to join us, we would love for you to explore that, whether you feel like you're at a crossroads, or maybe you don't know how to define it. You just know I'm in a kind of stage, and something needs to shift. And I need to feel more fulfilled or aligned or at ease with the way my life is going. And the Dare to Decide journey is just all about being able to articulate that. And once you can articulate it and define it and kind of piece it all together, then all of a sudden you start knowing, oh, this is the action I need to take, and you're going to be off running. Things will be rolling. So yeah, daretodecide.ca/experiences. That is in the description there. That's where you can find out a little bit more, sign up to join us. We start Sunday, April 4th. But you can join anytime that week, and you won't feel too left behind. We just want you to get started, get the book right off the bat, so you can start with us at your own pace. We would love to have you. Any final thoughts, Hope?
Yeah, so many. You know me, I could just keep talking.
I know,
right? This is a book that I have bought for several of family members, friends, because it did impact me, and it did make such a difference in my life and in my world. And like I said, it just touched my heart. I felt like it was speaking to my soul, and such a reflection of how I feel and the journey and that I want to travel as well. So I keep buying it for people, because it's like I said, it's just a very powerful way that Emily uses her words and her gifts and her experiences to just offer that heartfelt support and encouragement, no matter where you're at on your journey, no matter what your beliefs are, no matter what way how you want to travel it. She is a coach, and just she knows what she's doing. And this book, just it's a wonderful. So I would encourage everybody to join the book club, if not just for the information on the book, but the connection and the conversations that we're going to have. It's going to be great.
And definitely share it with someone. If someone's popped into your mind to say, you know what, they want to be part of a bigger mission. They want to move something, do something that's meaningful with their life. There's something, or just feeling stuck and I need to move forward. This is the book. Invite them along the journey with them. It's more fun to do it with people alongside you as well. That's it. All right. Well, thanks for watching. We'll see you around. Hit that link, go check out more. And again, if you haven't yet, wave in the comments. We'd love to know you're here. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in the book club.